By the way, in terms of this Pomodoro technique, during this 5-minute or 4-minute rest, it's best if you don't do something that is very similar to what you're doing within this 25 minutes kind of activity. Like in our case, most likely it's better not to do anything related to like a study or email or social media, but walking or doing dish or clothes, folding clothes or muscle training or meditating, and all these things are probably good and effective activity as refreshment between the 25 minutes stuff. Maybe it's best to look at this in a book. What's the best kind of activity? Anyway, so to come back about this manipulation of attention. So there are psychophysical methods to manipulate attention. There are many. And to understand the relationship between the consciousness and attention, it would be nice to keep unrelated components unchanged. And basically, that's the same kind of strategy as MCC. Fix one, vary the other two. Fix, in the case of MCC, like fixing the sensory input, varying the contents of consciousness, and so on. So same goes here in terms of attention. Keep the stimulus the same, but change the instruction. And so remove the eye movements. Sometimes eye movements are also talked about as a part of attention. But if you do that, then it's very unclear whether what we are talking about is whether the process difference between the fovea versus periphery or attention. So I think it's better to look at the study that does not confound this eye movement factor for the examination of whether the consciousness and attention are the same or different, or their relationships. Okay. So in addition to this attentional blink, there are two more very famous kind of manipulation of the attention, change blindness and the inattention blindness. And I just encourage you guys to go to this link to see what these things are. My experience is that many of the people already know these illusions or conditions, so I'll just skip. But just if you have never seen change blindness or inattention blindness, then make sure to experience it by yourself. The one that we tend to extensively discuss in this class is dual tasks. That's temporal version is inattentional blindness, attentional blink. This is a spatial version of the attentional manipulation. So the good thing about this dual task design is, first of all, we don't have a confound of eye movements. And also second, we don't have a confound of the stimulus. So the situation can be tested 3 times, and then we get all the 3 conditions. We have exactly the same stimulus input. And that's very important to get this attention without a stimulus confound. So here's what how it goes. So over the time, so that you start to see this kind of figure over and over. From bottom left to top right is the sort of sequence of the time over evolution. Initially, we present rotated letters like 5 or 7 or whatever. T and L's are usually used as it's relatively easy to increase the number of the T's and L's, and also it's easy to also control. And then after that, on top of these T's and L's, at some delay, so-called stimulus onset asynchrony, SOA, we present these F letters in a rotated way. Because L's and also T, if you superimpose that, T in an inverted manner like this, then this becomes F, right? So feature-wise, T's and L's have a sort of overlapping feature of the corner and the intersection and the number of, position of the letters. So they mask it very well. So this is a central mask. And then at the same time, we present some kind of target stimulus in the periphery. So here is a photograph of animals. And then that one is also followed by some mask image. This can differ study to study. Then important thing with this dual task paradigm, here is a important thing that we might ask in the exam as well, is that it has three conditions always. One is a single task of the center, meaning it's like paying attention to the letter R or C in the attention blink. You just pay attention to only the central task. And here you pay attention to the letters and then report whether all the 5 letters are the same or one is different. So here it's a 4 T's and the 1 L, so you report different. Okay, and you do this single central task. And the second condition is again single, but it's a peripheral task. So we completely ignore the central letters, but pay attention to the periphery. And then report, in this case, whether the stimulus included animal or not. And then you just focus on that, okay? That's a single task. And then as a third condition, we have a dual task. And then dual task has a C, central task, and P, okay? And then notice that, under all these three conditions, sensory input to the brain is exactly the same, right? So what's different in each of the condition is your mental sort of allocation of attention, either to the center only, or peripheral only, or both. So these three situations. And if attention is something that is limited in terms of the resource, like you have attention and you have this, and then you can allocate attention to the center here, and then a little bit for the periphery, then, this kind of model suggests that the more you pay attention to the center, the less you can perform on the periphery, right? But if these two things do not consume the same kind of attentional resource, then it can be performed at the same time. So that's the overall logic. So far, is there any question? Okay. And then the more also so far it's okay, I think. And then another key is to equate the performance of the single task difficulty. So here that comes this SOA manipulation. So by changing this duration or timing between the stimulus and then mask, you can always change the difficulty of the task. And then if the central task is 70%, and the peripheral task is also 70% difficult, then both of them are reasonably difficult. And then the question is whether when you try to do both at the same time, can you do it at the 70%? Or you can do it only 50% for one task, but the other one is 70%. So this is a dual task trade-off paradigm, okay? If there's any questions so far, ask me at this stage. Otherwise, we'll move on. So this is the demonstration of how it goes. It's a slowed down version, but you get the idea probably. So if you just focus on the center, and if it's not too slow or too fast on your Zoom version, which I hope is okay, then what you're seeing here is that, there was one different included, another one, that's all 5 T's, that's all 5 L's, and that's 1 L included different, 1 T included different, and so on. So that's a central task. Now, without moving your eyes, look at this in the center, and then try to say the peripheral picture included animals or not. And that one, no. That one, yes, it's like a lion or bear. And that's another, yes, beetle. And that's flower, no. This kind of thing, okay? Then under the dual task, you do the both at the same time. So here it's like all T's and then no animals. And that's all L's and no animals. And one L and then one animal, something like that. So am I able to do this because I know the answer or I'm the expert? That's the question, right? In this, Lee's study, what they found was the following. So this is a bit complicated figure. Each of these x-axis shows this normalized central performance. This 100 means that it's roughly like 70% correct. You can imagine that it's a very difficult challenge as a single task, okay? Single task performance is roughly like 70% each time. And then similarly, peripheral performance is also 70% each time. And then what's plotted in here is the individual average of the performance of the dual task, both at the same time. So here, this particular case is that discrimination of the animal versus distractors, non-animal, as a peripheral task. And the central task is always a letter task. And if you do that, then, for example, this particular person case, central task performance gets slightly worse, and then peripheral performance also gets slightly worse. But some other people actually even get better slightly. Maybe this is significant or maybe not. For the central and also the peripheral performance remains the same. And then overall, the trade-off was not observed here. So that means that, central letter task and this animal distractor task does not consume the same kind of attentional resource. This is not trivial if you think about it, because if you think about the task difficulty as as something that is correlated with the attentional requirement, then in this task, all the photographs are the ones that subject has never seen before, including the practice. You can imagine many different kind of thousands of natural pictures. One of them include animal, one of them include non-animal. And then even if you haven't seen it before, you can do it, okay? And then they did the control experiments where half of the distractor contains the vehicle. And then compare this animal versus vehicle and natural scene, and then the results are the same. Or the target is now the vehicle, but the distractor is the animals or this natural scene. So B and C are kind of complementary, whether the effect is a target or exists or not. But again, this is the same kind of thing. And this also addresses the concern of whether the animal detection is something that we can do because we are equipped evolutionary to do this in animal detection. That's why we can do this without attention. It seems at least the means of the transportation vehicle is also something that we can do without attention in this case. Is this figure clear? Fine? No question? A bit complicated figure, but I hope it's fine. Okay, all right. Then next comes sort of a half replication of this study, but significant extension of this study by my previous PhD student, Julian Matthews. So one of the problem of this study is that before going into the main experiment like this, subjects were trained for significant amount of time, like 10 hours or so of doing this task until their performance stabilized. That's a bit concerned because 10 hours of the training might change your brain quite a bit, right? So that's something that we wanted to address. Can we do this without any training? And the second is that can we measure the measure of the metacognition to rule out non-conscious processing? Partly because it's the training was really extensive in the previous study, it's possible that this animal, non-animal detection or central task performance starts to become like non-conscious. And if that's the case, even if you are correct or incorrect, you may not know whether you are correct or not. And that's called a measure of the metacognition. So to address these two possibilities, what Julian added to this experiment were the two things. One is to reduce the amount of this training. We adjusted this SOA, the duration of the stimulus, automatically using some nice automatic procedure called the Quest. And you don't need to remember this particular method, but the important thing is that there is a very nice computational method to minimize the training. And so once you become better, then the task becomes automatically more difficult and so on. I think you might have experienced some kind of test like that in your GRE or whatever IELTS. Like the more you succeed to answer, then the test itself becomes more difficult, right? Something like that we use in this task, and that minimizes the training. And then the second thing is that after each trial, instead of whether subjects reported that whether the face was male or female or letters were same or different, we also additionally got the confidence or visibility of the stimulus in the rating of +4 to -4. So for example, about the central letters, they reported not only the same or different, but also same with a very high confidence, 4, or not confident, 1. And then same goes for the different. I definitely saw that one letter different, or I was not sure, but maybe it was the one different thing included. Same goes for the face. Either I saw the male definitely or a female definitely to unsure option, and then they can choose intermediate one as well. And then we compare these three situations: central, single, peripheral, single, or dual. Okay, makes sense? And then what do you think in this case? For example, if you're doing this letter task at the same time as this face task in the periphery, like the case of the animals, do you think that it's possible to do both at the same time or not? So let's get the poll. A is that yes, it's like an animal. You can do both, face and letters at the same time. And B is that no, face gender discrimination is too complicated, and you do need an attention, so you cannot do it together with else. That's option B. And then other is unsure. A is you can do it with the face and the letters, and then B is no, you cannot, and then other is unsure. Okay, all right. So 2 unsure and then 3 positive that face is possible. Is there any reason why people thought that face is possible to do with letter task? Any theory about that, or just a guess? Just a guess? Face is easier than animals. But okay, so that's the kind of thing that I wanted to make sure. Okay, so here, important thing is that in terms of the difficulty, face, animals, transportation, letters, all of them are difficult. We made sure that the task performance of all the situation, face only or letter only or animal only or transportation, they are all 70%. So in the sense of the easy or difficult, they are all the same. Okay, but what matters is that let's say center only, you have a 70% correct. And then this is 50%. And then periphery is 50 to 70. And then if you do only periphery, you have a 70. Okay. And then if your performance has some kind of trade-off, then you can do periphery at 60%, but that also implies drop of the performance for the center. Or you can do either central, but no performance for the periphery. Something like this diagonal is a complete trade-off. Okay. What the dual task is trying to measure is that whether these two tasks, peripheral and the center, is compatible or possible to do at the same time or not. Does it make sense? So in the case of the attention blink, right? What you noticed was that looking at trying to see R and then trying to see C, that's not possible to have at the same time here, right? You are only able to see R or C. So it was competing along this line. But in the case of the animal, in the last figure, it's located at the top right, which means that these two tasks do not interfere each other here. So the difficulty is the same, but the attention does not compete for each other. That's the point. Does it now make sense? If it's not, you can ask question. Okay. Did everybody get it? This part may be a bit difficult, and yeah, maybe I'll ask about it in exam as well. So make sure if you didn't understand this. Okay. So now come to, okay, human face have a specific region for face recognition, so they don't confuse. Okay, so that's a good point. So yeah, as I reviewed in the last week, there is a region called FFA. Yes. So if you stimulate that, then you see face, and then if you don't have it, then you cannot see the face. So that means that there is a portion of the region that is dedicated to the face. If paying attention to something also suppresses the activity in FFA, then even if you have an FFA as isolated kind of area, it doesn't matter, right? So it's one good idea, whether it's possible to do the task or not depends on whether there's a dedicated neurons or dedicated areas is a good hypothesis to test, and then we'll come to it in maybe this week or next week. Is there any other comments or questions so far? Okay, then let's take a break for a minute again, and then we'll come to the last part of the 25 minutes after the break.